Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Cureton, senior journalist for XR Today. We're always bringing you the latest and greatest from the VR, AR, and XR industries. Today, we have on yet again another awesome guest. We have on Gaurav Dubey, Chief Executive of TDeFi, which is a crypto incubator and advisory firm. And just wanted to welcome you on today. Thanks so much for joining us, and thanks so much for your insights.
Thanks, Jamal, and thanks everyone for having me. I'm looking forward for a great conversation here. As we are looking forward in the industry of future, in the future of XR altogether, as much as the conversation would proceed.
Brilliant. Yep. And I'm hoping that we have a very good future for the XR industry as well. So we'll start with our first question. You recently came out with a report with some very interesting statistics on EdTech. So before we get started into that and do a dive in that, could you tell us a little bit about what EdTech is and how it relates to the metaverse?
That's a pretty broad question. I'll try to sum it up as quickly as I can. But so EdTech, anything that uses tech to enable itself to spread to scale, we call that a tech edition. So EdTech essentially is using technologies, or modern technologies, to scale and implement education better than it was. The simplest definition for noobs. That's what I can come up with quickly. But the new form of EdTech is actually pretty deep, and we are very excited with the developments. Education altogether has taken a new turn, and with the COVID attack, it was sort of forced on us. The innovation was forced on us. It's like a World War situation where one of the most influenced, one of the most affected industry was education, and tech had to jump in to enable the remote implications. The implications of remote education were to be covered, and that's where I actually shift from edtech and take it towards the XR industry, because um, we all believe, I think people of my age and above believe that education isn't possible digitally, like to the extent, or the quality of education, the quality of feel is not possible. I would agree, by the way. So this conversation begins from my opinion that education would never be the same digitally as it is in your universities, as it is physically. Metaverse is an approach, is the closest we get to be physically together in an educational environment. But then guess what? The losses that we make, that are incurred because of the distance, because of not being there physically, are actually complemented with the strength of XR, and that too on metaverse just makes it tremendously more beautiful. So, for example, collaborative learning is a whole new level on metaverse. Now, in the physical world, I was only dealing with the kids. If I was a student, I was dealing with the kids of my area, my zone, my type. Now I can actually have a class full of truly international audience willing to learn about a topic connected digitally, right? So that's one beautiful aspect. I just don't get to share my notes based on my culture, my zone. I get to know the other side of the world and how and what they think about the topic. That's point one. Second, the interaction is not 2D, not 3D, it's immersive, right? So I was reading about my best example is on a physics topic, and that's electromagnetic waves. Now, it took us a lifetime literally to understand the function, the propagation, the strength, the motion of induction. And I don't want to get into deep science topics, but it took us a while to actually understand the wave side of it, because on paper they were drawn lines, and then we were doing physics experiments. All of a sudden, now in the metaverse, now in the 3D AR, 3D VR world, you get a transformer in front of you. You start dismantling it in front of your eyes. The electricity flow can be shown visibly, right? The volt, intensity, amperage can be shown, can be expressed, and so can the electromagnetic waves. It is just about brilliant, the immersive experience, and that sticks to your mind. The concepts stick to your mind. So I think to conclude, the immersive experience of learning how a rocket propelled engine is and actually going into the 3D immersive world and dismantling a rocket is what you need, right? Biology would be so much different again without actually dissecting animals, which is obviously long forgotten practices. But in my age, I actually dissected animals. So yeah, that's the future we are looking at. The physical feel vibe is definitely missing, but there's so much more to complement it.
Absolutely. And we've seen a couple of, well, actually quite a few edutech solutions in the XR industry that have allowed people to operate on cadavers, that virtual cadavers, practice medical operations and procedures. So there's a lot to go through with that, and many companies are switching to edutech so that way they can use XR to train their workforces without having to go through a lot of expenses, such as, resources, materials, even books. Everything's just uploaded digitally. You can access it whenever you want. So this brings me to my next question.
I
Oh,
actually have something to add there, by the way, a big opinion. And
sure.
being a VC for like more than a decade now, I am actually surprised, like pleasantly, but mostly surprised by the rate of adoption of this. On one side, the education industry is parallel to banking industry. They don't like changes. They don't just change about anything. And I'm sure you've gone through endless conversations in your life where people have been cursing an education system of a country and the fact that it has never changed and there's nobody to change it, right? So as archaic the industry is, um, it has actually beaten the rate of adoption of DeFi, decentralized finance, of crypto, of money movement, of all the latest technologies. I mean, I'm so surprised at the rate of adoption. In countries like India, I see 10 schools, education institutions onboarding metaverse, signing metaverse deal, understanding, doing meetings like every week. That's the rate. Yesterday, one of the biggest states of the country, Rajasthan. You're all familiar with Jaipur and the Pink City from a tourism point of view. The chief minister held a meeting around this topic. Imagine. So that's, and metaverse was the epicenter of that discussion. It's all around the newspapers today. So that's where the adoption sits, and that's what we are looking at.
Yeah, those are great things that are taking place, and we have countries like, let's see, we have the United States, we have regions like the European Union, we have China, we have Japan and South Korea, all of them getting on board to try to build their own metaverse strategies. I wanted to ask
Yeah.
you briefly, like taking it to TDeFi, I wanted to ask you a little bit about how it integrates real-time 3D assets to interface with learners. So if you want to develop a module, how does it start that you develop an entire ecosystem to allow people to upload and to showcase their content? How does that work?
That's one of my favorite topics, talking about innovation and startups in my in the TDFi incubation portfolio. I'm not going to get into specifics because we're getting like one EdTech application every month. That's the rate, and we have like a wait list of 8 such applications, 2 already incubated. Um, and to answer your question specifically, and my favorite topic, like I said, is decentralization and bringing collaborative efforts. The way we have evolved in the software tech industry because of the open standards, because of open source codes, and tons of developers coming together to solve one single problem, right? The same thing happens with content and education material on the metaverse. Like you said, numerous people with different skills can come in. They can be educators, they can be learners, they can be um, I mean, teachers, they can be translators. I mean, the scope is just about unlimited. They can be players, by the way, gamers, um, and senior managers in the education field, like uh, promoters. Everyone has a space, everyone has a scope. I'll give you a life cycle because I know I got too excited and named some random participants. So for example, it can begin from a 3D modeler, right? A 3D modeler that knows, that has worked probably for a bit of his life on, let's pick up the most popular example, an MRI machine or a rocket propelled engine. Now he would know a lot of details. He'll draft a paper. A 3D modeler who might be sitting in, somewhere in a remote location with not a lot of opportunities to do 3D modeling and construct will read that document, start collaborating, and start creating bits and pieces of the design that he gets from those pictures, that he gets from this document. Now two people have got jobs and have become contributors, and because this is blockchain based setup, everyone's incentive is recorded on the blockchain as a construct of the product. So now these are two collaborators of one asset, or let's say two assets combined one. The third person gets into it, and he's probably a teacher, and he adds his narration on the top, and he adds like aspects to different parts of the rocket propelled engine. Like, okay, when you take out the outer shell is made of this is the metal, here's the link for metallurgy of the metal, here's the link for the fuel, da da da. Now probably this guy's an English speaking narration, right? And a normal teacher, like a high school teacher, is not so much aware of all of the sciences, but really wants to teach this to a student. He doesn't really have to have all of this expertise, but only has to translate that English audio into probably Arabic, into probably one of the African languages, Hindi, Sanskrit, German, whatever. So, and this guy takes it to his students, like 7 students, 10 students, whatever. They pay for the course because they're getting the value. The entire product life cycle didn't involve most of the participants who are paying, but the incentives are evenly, honestly, transparently distributed over the blockchain because it's a metaverse based, blockchain based asset. This is the beautiful part of metaverse based decentralized education, because contributors, collaborators have all the reasons to just build it and let it be there, because they know whenever it's commercialized, whenever, it'll come to them. This is like creating the first Apple Music, the way it was created for the first time, the whole idea of micro incentivization. And that's happening even more transparently this time.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's got like a very, supportive community that kind of works together to develop these assets, and it generates it in a grassroots way. So I think that that's very useful, and that's how
they have all the reasons to, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, and like that's really
and
the way.
To cover up your last bit, by the way, I'm sorry, I didn't cover the last bit. What does TDeFi do in this? So, we're getting applications from literally $100 million valued companies that have 100 million students. Some of them have 100 million students across 8 countries, 9 countries. They've raised 40 million, $50 million. They have all the content. One of our companies, Edwards, has more than 50,000 courses. 50,000 courses, not videos, courses on different topics, from culinary to physics to chemistry, from first standard to 8th standard, and then beyond. So these kind of huge companies and setups that have been working for 5-10 years in VR and AR and 3D modeling and content, they're coming to us and they want to understand the whole idea of decentralization, and not to basically miss out on the philosophy, because they are good at their thing. But decentralization and tokenization and crypto itself is a science, is a maths, is economics to be discovered and implemented in their product. And that's where we come in handy. So we make sure that this economics is well implemented for everyone to have their incentive, because if the economics is right, it'll function. And then we take it to the markets, we take it to the enterprise, we do bring all the right partners to that project from the Web3 space. So we are kind of the Web3 partners for these rather Web2 companies. That's where TDeFi comes as a role play.
Cool. Yeah, it's an interesting way of organizing it. And we see from what you've just described a little bit about the structure of how decentralized, EdTech would work. I did have one question about that, though. If we had to look at it from the other side, and we had to look at it from an ethics or a standards point of view, we would see there would need to be like minimum standards or qualifications for minting certain NFTs. Of course, you couldn't teach people how to do something dangerous, or you couldn't teach them how to do something, that probably wouldn't meet the requirements of that particular class or that age group. So is there an approval process, or is there a way that these companies or these collaborators could actually teach students using assets that have been actually checked and vetted by certain groups?
The whole idea of decentralization is opposite of control. But let's not take that as a fundamental statement. There is a decentralized control mechanism as well in the world of blockchain. So yes, losing control, losing centralized and or personal opinionated control is what is the opposite of the whole blockchain idea. But to say that there is absolutely no control over anything would be wrong, because there are decentralized control mechanisms called DAO, decentralized organizations, right? Autonomous organizations. That is also one of the very popular mechanisms in the crypto world. So I'll answer this in two ways. Primarily, the metaverse EdTech space is not meant to be controlled. What will happen is, if I pick up the same example that I quoted a minute ago, somebody would come in and document how to make a paper bomb, right? Let's pick up a small example. Other would maybe create the 3D content around it and create a list of inventory of partners who are selling it. And the third one might add a narration to it. But you can always implement the control on the sales side, right? So if there's a school that's about to sell this content, and remember, this is a decentralized economy, they don't have to sign agreements with somebody that, you know what, we'll if we sign up with you, we'll sell all the packages. This is the beauty. So the school, the tutor, or even an individual student can judge and choose and pick what do they want to study. And I'm assuming that the student wouldn't be that part. It will be rather the schools, the teachers picking up these courses. Sorry. So they obviously, the ethics, the personal ethics of teaching, the personal ethics of content of sales would apply at the last mile. But at the same time, please understand that just can't be controlled. Right now, second answer, or the second layer of sophistication, if added on the top of this, which should be, because a solution is meant to solve problem and not to create more problems, right? So the second layer of control can obviously be implemented through implementing a content DAO on the top of it, which means every content that gets into it goes through the content DAO. There can be validator systems, and this is what we really do in TDeFi. We bring in all these ideas collectively to implement and ensure what the project really aims to, right? And then our part of the business and our part of the ethics is to make sure that we are working and branding ourselves with the projects that are sincere about compliance. So the DAO can definitely, the DAO mechanisms, the verification mechanisms, the verifier incentivization mechanisms can obviously be implemented to control this decentralized environment. So it's not like a wild horse that would just run for the race. There are checks and balances that, if proper advisors are onboarded by these projects, they certainly don't have an excuse not to do it. But I answered you in two levels. So because this is an ongoing conversation, like 5,000 times a day in the world of blockchain, right? Just recently we heard of the developer of the mixer, of the crypto mixers, being picked up in Netherlands, So and then there's a revolution around decentralization and open source code. But then I would again say that if there were right advisors on the top of these developers, and the product was delivered to its full length and covered with the checks and balances of ethics, we wouldn't have landed into this situation probably. So just saying that decentralization is being a wild hog is not an argument I accept.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, apologies. I'm still getting over a little bit of seasonal stuff going outside. But yeah, I know that a lot of times, having these systems of checks and balances is extremely important, because, when you deal with education, it can be a very sensitive subject. And many times people may think that one subject is okay, another is not, as well as, the quality of the content, I guess quality control of the content as well would be important for them to consider. I guess before we go, is there anything else that you'd like to add about, I guess, your platform, Edverse, and anything else that we could talk about related to like EdTech and the metaverse?
As an incubator, I just can't be specific on one project because we have quite a few projects in the EdTech space. But yeah, Edverse certainly is something that is recently recently launched. They have quite a background, 7-year background of producing educational content for the top brands of the world, including Google, Oxford publications, and so on. So there's certainly a level of genuinity, maturity that you'd find in that content. But I would say that wait for the other projects incubated by us, TDeFi, to be announced, and they're also solving one of the other problems of education and are approaching the EdTech space from a different angle. So we are there as TDeFi. We're there to cover all sides, as many as we can, and advise and consult our projects to focus on their expertise, because we can see from the top how many other projects are trying to do other things that fall into their area of expertise. So it's a very Silicon Valley mindset where you don't take the approach that is solved already by someone else. Rather, you focus on your core skill and collaborate with others. So that's what TDeFi is about. If you're building a solution that is there to change the world, really, with the power of decentralization, with the power of crypto, we welcome you with open arms. We don't worry, don't be afraid of the whole Web3 ideology, decentralization, token, DEX, all those jargons. We have done it for the last 7 years, and officially as TDeFi in the last 3 years, more than 50 projects delivered. So we'll be waiting for you for your solution with open arms to take care of the Web3 side for you.
Brilliant. Excellent insights. And I do appreciate your time and expertise. Thanks so much again. We have been speaking to Gaurav Dubey, Chief Executive of TDeFi, which is, again, a crypto incubator and advisory firm, which is doing some amazing things in the metaverse space, especially when it comes to blockchain and cryptocurrencies and integrating all of those nice solutions together to create this amazing ecosystem. So thanks again for your time.
Thanks, Dimon. Thanks, everyone, for listening so patiently.
Brilliant. Okay, and everyone, this wraps it up for today. And if you'd like to continue to follow us, please follow us at the XR News hashtag. You can go ahead and follow us on social medias, including Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And once again, my name is Cureton, Senior Journalist for XR Today. And thanks so much for your time and attention. Have a lovely day and continue to stick with us for the next episodes. Thanks. Bye now.
Thank you.